Chapter 24. After the final bell Tuesday, the activists hurriedly gathered in the school's auditorium. This room would be vacant for about 30 minutes until rehearsal began for a sixth grade production. Mr. Mount had bargained for 30 minutes on the grounds that his debate team needed some vague form of practice. They quickly arranged the stage to appear ready for the real debate, with a podium in the center and a long folding table on each side. Since it wasn't a real debate, chairs were moved in close and filled with fake spectators. A dozen or so friends drafted by Theo and Hardy. To improve the quality of the video, Mr. Mount used a camera on a tripod. When everyone was in place, Mr. Mount announced off camera, and now Theodore Boone. Theo stood from behind his table, and to his right were Hardy, Chase, and Woody, all four wearing clip on ties and bright yellow surgical face masks. Theo walked into the podium and nodded to the opposing team, which consisted of Justin, Brian, Darren, and Edward, four other volunteers from Mr. Mount's homeroom. They too had clip on ties with yellow masks. The spectators, including April and some guys from Hardy's homeroom, were bunched together close to the podium. Their faces were also hidden behind yellow surgical masks. Hardy's father had found masks online, $9 for a carton of 50, available in every color imaginable. Theo yanked his down and looked at the camera. With a frown, he said, "My name is Theo Boone, and today the issue before us is the so-called Red Creek bypass." He coughed twice, then covered his nose and mouth with the mask. Next to the podium was a large map of the county, with the bypass highlighted in blood red, as if it were a deadly gash in the landscape. Theo pointed and said, "This bypass will take Highway 75 around the city of Strattenburg out here into a more rural area where it will destroy 50 homes, several farms, a hiking trail, a historic church, and it will bring about 25,000 cars and trucks a day to the front door of Jackson Elementary School." On cue, the spectators hissed and booed. Theo continued, "It will also take out part of the soccer complex and across Red Creek River in two places." More booing and hissing. The bypass will cost $200 million and is being pushed hard by businessmen, politicians, and trucking companies north and south of Strattenburg. More booing and hissing. One of the worst aspects of this bypass is right here at Jackson Elementary School, home to about 400 students from pre kindergarten to fifth grade. There has been no reliable study as to the noise and pollution near this school, but it's safe to say that the quality of air will be greatly harmed. On cue, everyone started coughing, even the members of the opposing debate team. Theo, with great drama, said, "In short, this bypass is a bad project, a waste of money, a dangerous idea, and it should never be built." He stomped away from the podium as if ready for a fist fight. The spectators managed to stop coughing and began applauding. For the other side, Justin rushed to the podium, and from the behind his bright yellow mask said, "On the contrary, this bypass is needed so that some folks can make more profits. Trucking companies, land developers, construction companies, all of these and more will make huge profits. It's especially good for them, but it's also good for us." A loud round of booing and hissing from the spectators. The more money they make, the more taxes they pay. Well, some of them anyway. And the more taxes we rake in, the more stuff our leaders can do with it. Don't you see? The spectators did not see and continued their show of displeasure. Mr. Mount stepped forward and said, "Okay, let's cut for a minute and rethink this." The goal was a 2-minute video with a debate scene burning about 30 seconds. Under Mr. Mount's direction, they did another take, then another. On the third take, the two teams actually began yelling at each other, with names like liar, crook, and sleazebag thrown in for a bit of exaggerated drama. The spectators tossed debris at the podium while Justin ranted on. With all faces hidden behind a surgical mask, it was easy to conceal the smiles and laughter. After half an hour, Theo, Hardy, and Mr. Mount were satisfied. They had enough footage for a great opening scene. The filmmaking would become more difficult. For the second scene, many more actors were needed, and there was a greater risk that things could go wrong. After school Wednesday, the activists met at an old softball field not far from Strattonburg Middle School. Softball season was several months away, and the field was supposed to be vacant this afternoon. However, in Strattonburg, as in most cities, no vacant field was safe during soccer season when coaches scoured the neighborhoods in search of any open area that might work for a quick practice. There had even been fights. The few new soccer complex near Jackson Elementary was built to provide adequate space and thus reduce the pressure. It was packed 5 afternoons a week, and throughout the weekend, but it seemed as though there would never be enough soccer fields. But there was no soccer field in sight, at least not of the organized variety. At precisely 4 p.m., bikes and cars arrived in a rush. Many of the players of Red United Party's team showed up and quickly began changing into their uniforms. Their coach, Jack Fortenberry, brought a bag of balls, some orange cones, a small portable goal complete with netting, and some extra practice jerseys for the other team. The other team was a ragtag bunch of non players who'd been recruited by Theo and Hardy, most of whom came from their homerooms. In all, about 15 players took the field, half wearing Red United jersey, half wearing a white practice shirt, and all wearing bright yellow surgical masks, as if the air was pure poison. Along the sidelines, parents held homemade signs that read, "Stop the bypass, protect our kids, no bypass gas," and so on. The parents were also wearing yellow surgical masks. Many of the adults were either twins or related to the family. For extra drama and perhaps a bit of humor, the two coaches, Mr. Fortenberry and Mr. Mount, strapped around their heads bulky gas masks from World War One variety. They weren't real. Hardy had found them online for $10 each, but they looked authentic. Theo was in charge of special effects, and after gauging wind directions, he and Chase eased down the foul line in the right field. When no one was looking, they lit a smoke bomb, tossed it in the ground, and quickly got away from it. A slight breeze lifted the bluish smoke into the air and carried it over the field. Theo had done his homework. There was a city ordinance against the use of fireworks unless proper permission was granted, and Theo, of course, had chosen not to get permission. However, fireworks were defined as portable devices and objects designed to make loud noises when triggered. When triggered. In Theo's opinion, the city ordinance did not outlaw the use of silent smoke bombs. That's what Theo was prepared to argue, if, in fact, he got caught. Getting caught, though, seemed highly unlikely. Who was going to complain? Everyone in the site was in the same team, so to speak. As a light fog settled over the field, the game began. It wasn't really a game, but more of a playtime as the boys chased the ball around and kicked it as far as possible. They coughed and gagged, and other Theo's fearless direction, even collapsed in fits of wheezing as if overcome by diesel exhaust. Theo and Hardy filmed the fans, their signs, and the coaches trying to yell from under their gas masks. They filmed the penalty kicked, in which the goalie seemed to fall dead in the precise moment the ball blew by him. Final scene was a pathetic shot of all the players lying in the field, all gasping and wheezing, and unable to continue, much like dying soldiers left behind after a gun battle. An elderly man from a nearby house showed up and began asking questions. Where'd that smoke come from? Everybody shrugged. You kids all right? More shrugging as the kids got up and began walking away. Should I call 911? That's not necessary, Mr. Mount said. Why is everybody wearing a mask? Air pollution, Theo replied as he hopped onto his bike. Saturday afternoon, the soccer complex was packed with 10 games underway, with cars wedged into overflowing parking lots. Hardy had played that morning and was free for the afternoon. Theo, Chase, Woody, and April met him near the elementary school for the shooting of another scene. Because the driveway that led to the school was also ran along farther to the soccer complex, there was a lot of traffic. They had to be careful. It was not a crime to wander across the campus of a public school on a weekend, but Theo did not want curious people asking questions. He knew from experience that security guards kept a casual eye on the various local schools during nights and on weekends. The gang put on their yellow surgical masks and posed for photos by large Jackson Elementary School sign near the front entrance of the campus. Then they drifted behind the main building until they came to a playground. There was no sign of a security guard or school employee. Theo dropped another smoke bomb and walked away from it. Soon there was a cloud drifting over the playground. While Chias worked the camera, Theo, April, Hardy, and Woody jumped into the swings and began kicking and ripping through the air. At 13, they were too old to be posing as elementary school students, though the yellow surgical masks hid most of their faces. Shot at a distance, the scene might work. Chase continued to back away with the video camera, and from 50 yards, he found his range. The scene became almost too good. Kids on a playground, faces covered for protection as a cloud of dirty diesel exhaust settles over them. Perfect, he yelled to his friends. Just perfect. Theo and Hardy slept over at Chase Whipple's Saturday night. The Boones and Whipples were close friends, and there was often a weekend sleepover in the works. The boys said they had a couple of movies to watch, but the real reason was to polish up their video. Chase knew of a website where they could purchase footage from almost anything imaginable for $6, paid for by Hardy's father and his credit card. They downloaded scenes of real 18-wheelers roaring along the crowded highway, exhaust pouring from their pipes. They downloaded shots of four-lane highways choked with slow-moving traffic. With Sebastian Ryan's permission, they borrowed footage, diagrams, and scenes from the Stratton Environmental Council website. Everything was loaded into Chase's laptop since he was the principal's editor. Chase would do more with the laptop than anyone they knew. He had recorded albums, made movies, created comics, built science projects, illustrated stories, and had live interactive chats with kids from around the world. In the school's annual computer Olympics, he had won the gold medal in the past 3 years, often competing against kids 3 years older. If it was online, Chase would find it, and often before anyone else could find the on switch. And if the software existed, Chase would master it in minutes. As they watched and brainstormed and sometimes argued, the video came together. It began with a black screen and loud noise of big truck diesel engines. The tile bypassed to nowhere appeared as the trucks grew louder off screen. Cut to Theo at the podium, introducing himself as he covered his nose and mouth with a bright yellow surgical mask. As he railed against the bypass, the camera cut to the spectators, all wearing yellow masks, then to the other team. The audience booed and hissed as the debate raged on. The next scene, borrowed from this SEC, was a virtual ride along the proposed bypass. When the ride approached Jackson Elementary, the narrator, Sebastian Ryan, spoke gravely off screen about the dangers to the students. Cut to a photo of the activists posing at the Jackson Elementary sign, all wearing yellow surgical masks. The sounds changed back to the roar of diesel trucks as the video changed into an action shot of the kids swinging happily in the playground while a dangerous fog settled over them. The smoke bomb had worked perfectly, and the three boys were quite proud of themselves. Suddenly, there was a face of a young mother, wiping tears and going on about the unknown dangers that 25,000 vehicles a day would pose to Jackson Elementary. She had two kids at the school. How could the county even think about such a project? Why put the safety of the kids first? This next scene was back in the debate, with Justin arguing the bypass was needed for more profits could be made. While the spectators booed and hissed, a couple actually tossed wads of paper at him. As he spoke, the video cut to a four-lane highway jam-packed with 18-wheelers and cars bumper to bumper. The mock soccer game was the climax of the video. Chase cut and pasted until the scene was a mix of players trying to play while coughing and gagging in the toxic air, and parents watching and cheering behind yellow masks and hand-painted protest signs, and coaches trying to yell through bulky gas masks. When all the players had finally passed out, the final scene was a close-up of Judge sitting in the bleachers with broken leg and yellow circle mask strapped around his face. The black screen were the words, Protect the kids, stop the bypass. After they watched it the second time, the boys couldn't suppress their laughter. If they could be forgiven for a bit of bragging, it was nothing short of brilliant, at least in their opinions. They tweaked it some more, cutting and adding a little here and there. And at 11 p.m., Miss Whipple stepped into Chase's room and announced it's time for bed. Chase asked his mother if she wanted to see their masterpiece. Of course he did. Long ago, Miss Whipple had learned not to be surprised at anything that came from her son's laptop, most of which he kept hidden from his parents. But when he offered to give her a peek, she never said no. For 2 minutes, the boys held their breaths as their first viewer reacted. She smiled and frowned and even laughed when the soccer players keeled over. Very good, she said when it ended. Excellent. Now, what do you plan to do with it? We're still discussing that, Theo said. I'll bet you are. Now go to sleep. After she left the room, Chase sent the video to Mr. Mount and to Sebastian Ryan at the SEC. I said chapter 24.